For the next class up, we have Thaumaturge. Thaumaturge is a healer-based class with probably the weakest actual healing ability in the game, but some of the better offensive capabilities of the role type, along with some decent supportive options. Honestly, the weapon itself is pretty sick, but it can be difficult to make hybrid classes work in RPGs since usually it's better to specialize and excel in one aspect. So how does Thaumaturge stack up? Well, it's definitely not the strongest class in my eyes, but it does have some interesting options available to it, and in this video I want to discuss the Thaumaturge class, talk about its strengths and weaknesses, and showcase how to use it most effectively. There should not be any story spoilers in this video, and as always, if you enjoy these guides, please be sure to subscribe to the channel if you like me enough and want to see more guides in the future. Let's get into it. As Mio is the S rank for the class, I'll be using the class with her. Uni, of course, has slightly higher base healing than everyone else, and Tyan has a good mix of healing and attack, but as with most classes, this does not matter too much. So I have tried to use this class leaning into its offensive hybrid capabilities, and I've never really found it to be too effective. What I have found much more success with is leaning much harder into its support capabilities with a bit of additional offense sprinkled in. I think the class functions a lot better this way, and my arts should reflect that. Rank Splitter is the first art on the class, and it is the only healing art you actually have, so it is probably going to be really important to run in most situations if you want to do any actual healing at all, outside of your talent art or master arts. For that reason, I think it is a pretty good art to run. 5 cooldown is not bad, the power multiplier is decent, and it is a physical attack, which is what you primarily want to be doing with this class if you've tried to use it offensively. Violent Flurry is your strongest art with a power multiplier of 400% and a 50% chance to ignore defense. This art, in theory, can hit pretty hard. The problem is the class itself just doesn't have that much attack power in general, so it's never going to feel that amazing even if you do ignore defense and combine it with the defense lowering skill that you have. But at the very least, it has a okay cooldown of 5, it's decently spammable, and if you really want to do offense with this class, this can be a good art to run. Divine Protection is your field effect, something you probably want to run just to make sure you can charge up your talent gauge faster if you want to use your talent art at all. It has a recharge gauge of 3, giving it a very short cooldown, and it also grants the Armor Veil buff, so anyone standing inside the circle will have a little shield to their max health, which will make them have some better survivability, which is kind of like a healing option. Leaping Current is another really short cooldown art that grants the attack up buff to the entire party, and will also clear debuffs on all of your allies that are close enough to you. I think this art is one you definitely want to run if you plan on using this class, because having attack up is really nice, and although there are probably better classes at applying attack up, this can still be a really useful effect to have, and being able to clear debuffs is not a bad effect, especially against certain enemies that might apply dangerous debuff effects like Bleed or Burn to you, like one of the ones I'll be fighting in this video. So I do think this can be a good skill, and the attack up buff is always going to be nice, so in that sense, this is a really good art to run. Spearpoint Thrust will inflict bind. It's on a recharge gauge of 7 and has a power multiplier of 310%. I feel like this is your worst art option just because enemies are going to be resisting bind like crazy near the end of the game, all the powerful unique monsters, all the story bosses, because debuffs are just not very good in this game, unfortunately, so you're not likely to get a lot of benefit out of this. That said, Bind can be a really good debuff if you're able to inflict it, just stopping the enemy from moving for a time, but don't rely on this to really be that effective in most situations. If you want to stop the enemy from doing stuff, just rely on reactions like Break, Topple, Launch, Smash, Daze, and Burst. Personally, I chose to run the 2 supportive options in Divine Protection and Leaping Current, and I also ran Rank Splitter as the only healing option on the kit just because I think leaning into the support is going to give you more success in most situations. Violent Flurry, like I said, can be a pretty powerful art, but it's just not going to be the most impactful, and you're better off just using your damage dealers to deal damage than a healer. Demise Thrust is the talent art for the kit. This is able to inflict burst, it's the earliest burst you get in the entire game, and it has some pretty decent synergy with the class as a whole. Burst can definitely be a really good effect, and this is also a physical attack with a pretty powerful power multiplier, so you can definitely get a lot of benefit out of this. You just need to make sure you have good party support to make sure you can get the breaks off, and I am also choosing to run Shield Bash and Myopic Screen as 2 options for Master Arts, because I think they are going to be really beneficial just because having a Topple and a Daze myself allows me to basically complete the rest of the combo as long as I can get a break from another source. I could put Break in the last slot, but I don't think it's going to be the most beneficial since you have a much better breaker option that you can use on a team in Ogre. So my last Master Art option ended up being Multi-Blast. Even though it's an Ether attack, it will heal the party for 100% of healing power when the art connects, so that gives it the same effect as Rank Splitter and gives you a decent 1200 heal when the attack happens. Now, outside of that 1200 heal, you don't really have many healing options, so you really need to rely on the Armor Veil a lot, and you need to be able to use Burst to get some extra healing. Now, how does Burst give you some extra healing? Well, that has to do with one of the class skills for the class, and one of the reasons you want to go for Burst with the class if you want to get any healing whatsoever. Wheel of Rebirth will heal all allies using 900% of healing power when executing a burst. Basically, when you execute a burst, you're healing everyone for like 5,000 to 6,000 health. This is really good for basically restoring everyone's health to full except for the most tanky of tanks. And as a Thaumaturge, this is probably going to be the main healing option you have, so if you really want to take advantage of the class, you need to make sure you have the combos that can lead to Burst. Burst is a pretty good effect in general, especially against really powerful super bosses, especially on hard mode as well, because you can purge and rage when you use Burst on enemies, and that can actually be really valuable to make the enemies less powerful for most of the fight. It's a good defensive support option, so this is definitely not a bad skill, it just requires a lot of support to make sure it can work properly. Now, based on what I have learned about Chinese pronunciation in the last week or so, I'm assuming this is pronounced Xinggong, and it boosts evasion by 35% when moving. Now, this can be a decent emergency way to try to avoid attacks if you get aggro at a bad time as a healer, just by moving around, although it's not likely to be the most impactful in a lot of situations since you're not likely to have aggro very often at all, since you're not going to be doing that much damage and you're not going to be contributing that much healing either to take that much aggro off of your primary attack dealers and hopefully not off of your tanks. Ultimate Qigong will ignore 50% of enemy physical defense when landing a hit. We've learned recently this is one of the best skills in the game, although it's not going to be the most impactful for the actual class it's from, ironically, just because you're not going to get the most benefit out of doing a lot of physical damage and ignoring your support options on the kit. This skill reduces enemy physical defense by a flat 50 percentage points. The wording is a little bit misleading, so if an enemy has 20% physical defense, it'll actually go to negative 30% instead of just 10%, giving you a much larger benefit out of it. So it is a really good skill, and I'm really glad it's a master skill. It's just not the most impactful on the class it's actually from, just because Thaumaturge is not going to be the most DPS-heavy class in general. Life-Saving Fists will heal yourself when an auto-attack hits to a maximum of 100% of your healing power. Ironically enough, Thaumaturge might be the best self-healer in the game simply because of this skill, because every time you auto-attack, you're healing yourself for a pretty decent amount, so I think this is a really funny skill just because of that. This is actually a pretty good skill for keeping yourself as a healer pretty healthy, which actually can be pretty important to make sure you can revive allies, and I do think it is worth it in a lot of situations to have a skill like this, so it's not the worst skill that you can have. And all around, I feel like the class skills for this class are decent, but not really that amazing. But you can make them work, and they can have some use in a lot of situations. For my master skills, I am running Strengthening Gambit. This will extend duration of buff effects issued by myself by 50%. This is pretty obvious if I want to apply attack boost and armor veil to my allies, just to make sure that can last longer and make them slightly more powerful. I am also running Swift Song as an obligatory party support option that'll boost ally accuracy and evasion by 20%. You can definitely run something else here if you can fit this on a different ally or something, but at the same time, it's really good to just run support options in general on your healers. I'm also running Dynamite Spirit, which will boost damage dealt by 60% when health is 90% or higher. Now, like I said, you're not doing the most damage with this class, but it does have some offensive capability and it can at least contribute somewhat. So I do think this can be a good skill to run because this class is one of the best at actually staying above 90% health because you heal yourself every time you auto-attack. And as a healer, you're not likely to take aggro too often, so it's pretty easy to get this 60% damage boost. Since this is the only additive I'm running on the kit as well, this is actually a guaranteed 60% damage boost to all damage, so it's not actually going to have any diminishing returns. Now, you might want to run some different options that might be more helpful in some situations. You can consider All About Support to get another Field Art and run Advanced Cooldown so you can charge up your talent gauge faster, and also just have another defensive option for your kit. And there's likely some other supportive effects and offensive effects you might want to consider as well. For my gem setup, I am running both Swelling Blessing and Refined Blessing because it's pretty obvious to run these if you want to have any buff effects at all to have any impact, because it'll extend duration even further and also increase the power of the buff effects by 50%, which can be very, very useful in a lot of situations. Analyze Weakness is the last slot I am running here, but in truth I don't think it was the most impactful with only a 24% critical hit rate, but I wanted to try to spec into my offensive abilities just a little bit. I think there probably would have been a lot of benefit out of just running life-saving expertise, just because it's really good to be able to revive your party members faster. And ironically enough, Steady Striker might actually be pretty good on the class, because you can heal yourself really, really often if you can attack more often, and there's no negative benefits to that. So this might actually be one of the only classes where Steady Striker can be a really, really good effect to have. For accessories, I am running these Solas Rings just for a nice boost to the healing stat. This is pretty standard to make my heals more effective overall in fights. Devotional Necklace is here to make sure I can recover my recharge every time I revive an ally, allowing me to heal them when they wake up, allowing me to use my arts more often, allowing me to get my talent gauge up more often. And all in all, I really like this accessory on pretty much every healer that's not a Troubadour that automatically gets that effect. So I think this is a really, really good option to consider. Ceramic Belt is here to boost my attack by 32% because, like I said, I'm trying to spec just a little bit into offense to not be completely useless in that aspect, since this class does have some options there. And we get this amazing attack stat of 1061, which is only 500 below all of your DPS classes. I'm not sure if speccing into offense is really all that worth it on this class, but it can be nice to make fights end a little bit faster just from having some extra offensive capabilities. But I think even if you spec entirely into support, it can still be a pretty useful class in that aspect because it does have some pretty decent options there. And Burst is just a powerful effect in general if you set your party up for that. With all that done, I think it's about time to look at how to use this class practically. Is there any better way to show off the true effectiveness of a class than fighting a level 125 dragon on hard mode with only one real tank in your party? I guess I have Asher as well, but both of them are lone exiles, so they're not the best tanks already. So we're really going to have to carry with the combos and the healing. I have one other healer in my party, Tyon, who is a Signifer, so we do have that going for us. And then we have 3 DPS because I just like using DPS and doing a bunch of damage. Now, this fight, I really wanted to show off all of the power of just the healing and everything, so I don't even chain attack this entire fight. And I also don't use my Ouroboros forms, even though I probably should have. Don't play like me. I just like using the class and showing the class off to you guys more than anything, so I don't really swap characters during these either. And typically how I start this fight off is just starting with Divine Protection and Leaping Currents as much as possible to build up my talent gauge so I have Burst on standby whenever I need it. I don't really need it right now, though, so I'm not going to be that worried about using it. We're getting a couple launch combos. Eventually, I'm going to change it to where we only want burst combos by setting the party settings to make sure that we don't get any more launches, or usually don't get any more launches at the very least. But right now, it doesn't really matter because I haven't really taken any damage yet. He's not enraged yet, so launch is actually slightly better at the current moment in time. We don't get a daze here. I don't use my burst yet because there's really no reason to do it. And you can see his health bar's kind of going fast because of my team setup. I've got a good Soul Hacker, I've got a good Full Metal Jaguar, and I've got Senna on Ogre doing a lot of damage to him all at the same time. And I guess I'm doing some okay damage myself as the Thaumaturge here. It isn't the most damage, but it still can be pretty decent, especially if you actually do get a critical hit. And basically what I'm trying to do is stand as close to most of my party as possible. And now I have 2 characters bleeding, so I use Leaping Current to get rid of that debuff. So they're no longer bleeding. And I'm trying to use Divine Protection as much as I can to make sure everyone has that effect available to them. You can stack multiple of these Divine Protection fields, which can be useful for helping keep your party alive even more by giving them these shields. And you see right now he's auto-attacking, but no one's really was taking damage at that point in time. But eventually he can go through them all. Unfortunately, Crushing Bite one-shots Lons with 13,000 damage. So we're in a little bit of trouble now because now our DPS are going to get targeted. But fortunately, we shouldn't be in too big of an issue yet. I choose not to use Burst at this particular moment in time because he's still not enraged just yet, so I'm still holding on to that. And Lons is kind of close to full health again anyway. Now would be a good moment to use that. I use Leaping Current to try to clear Blaze on as many people as possible because that can do a lot of damage over time. It's still on Senna because Senna was not that close to me. He's enraged now, so as soon as I get this Daze, I'm going to go for the Burst here, and that's going to heal everyone as well. So I heal myself back to full. Senna's basically almost back to full now as well. Everyone else got the top-off health they needed. And we're in a pretty good position, because now that he's no longer enraged, he's not that much more powerful than he was before. So I feel pretty confident about the current state of the battle. And right now I'm going to be using Divine Protection a decent amount to make sure I can restore my abilities. I try to hold Shield Bash and Myopic Screen. I don't try to use Fusion Arts that often in this fight, because it's better just save those for combos when you need them. But sometimes I kind of just, force of habit, use a Fusion when I probably shouldn't. So I try to hold on to those just to make sure that I can use those at optimal times. I go ahead and go for the Daze combo here, and then I go for the Burst because I was trying to save Asher, but she ends up dying to the damage over time effect before that happens, unfortunately. Fortunately, though, we do get another Burst off, and now at this point I'm going to be using Divine Protection, a decent amount, again, to restore my Talent Art, because that's my main way of doing that. Leaping Current to buff everyone's aggro, or attack stat, I should say. I guess that also buffs aggro with how much damage they deal. And right now the fight is definitely going well, but it can go poorly at any given moment. We are fighting a level 125 super boss on hard mode with only 1 tank. Or, I guess 2 tanks, but you know what I mean. And Signifer is not the best at pure healing either, so we're really relying a lot on our burst combos and our armor veils to make sure we get enough healing. Unfortunately, Uni does die here because she gets targeted by 2 of the fireballs, which is a little bit unfortunate. Helping Uni up instantly gives me all my arts, though, so I'm able to instantly use my Rank Splitter Multi-Blast combo for some instant healing, which is pretty nice. I can throw out another Divine Protection. I can use Leaping Current again to clear debuffs on characters if I'm close to them. And now he is enraged again, so now I want to be using Burst if I can get the ability to. And I'm fortunately in a really good position to do that. I get the Daze off, I go for the Burst right immediately, and he is now no longer enraged again. And we are pretty safe for him for a little while again, or so I thought. Things do get a little hairy once some bad luck happens. That's a pretty powerful area of effect attack there, and I don't really have the best healing right now to make sure that we are okay from that. And Immortal Flame here does something really bad and ends up killing me with a crit. And Noah dies to the Blaze effect. I'm not alive to use Leaping Current to get rid of those damage over time effects. But fortunately, one good thing is, no matter how bad of a situation you're in, if you're playing a healer, you can recover okay in this game. And basically what I'm trying to do is use my healing and then revive someone, use my healing and then revive someone when the arc comes back up again, and just try to put myself back in a good position. Everyone's alive again, and we are okay now, for the most part. Uni dies. I set up Armor Veil again, I revive her, get my healing back, use my healing moves again, and things are going kind of poorly at the current moment in time, but all it takes is just getting one good combo off, and we should be okay. We have a regenerate circle on the ground. I've got my healing art up so that I end up using. And everyone but Noah's in an okay position now. The Blaze effect ends up killing Ashura. I try to use Leaping Current, and Wands ends up dying to the burn effect as well. I end up using my burst when I didn't want to because I was trying to revive someone, and of course revive and your talent art are tied to the same button for some reason, so I couldn't purge the enrage here, which was really annoying, but at the same time, we're not in a terrible position. I kind of wanted to keep this fight, even though I didn't really need to. Just because I felt like it'd be better to show off, yes, if things go wrong, you can still kind of recover and still put yourself in a good situation. Now, obviously, I also could have chain attacked at any time and we would have easily won the fight. I could have used my Ouroboros forms and we would have easily won the fight. But I'm just kind of showing off, like, if you don't have those options available to you, you can still kind of recover even against the strongest of enemies. And honestly, the good party support with the combo options are really the main thing that's really helping here. This would be a lot harder without that, especially because there's not really great healing options with Thaumaturge outside of a couple arts that are okay, but not the best, and your burst, which is rare to get sometimes. Right now, we got a couple other allies dead, so the fight hasn't been going the greatest, but at the same time, we are almost done with this health bar, so I'm gonna get myself in a good situation here to take advantage of this. I try to go for a Divine Protection into get my burst back up, but unfortunately it doesn't. I know the burst is not going to be able to hit in time. Unfortunately, the burst starts kind of slow, so you're not always in a great position to use it, but we get another combo here. I'm able to finally burst, get rid of the enrage one last time, heal everyone to full, and we should be in a really good position at this point now. It is worth noting you can use your party commands to get everyone closer to you, because my party gets really spread out, and that's kind of half the problem in some of those later parts of the fight, but at the same time, we're able to, like, really easily win at the very end here, and I just activate Ouroboros Swarms just for the heck of it, so didn't even get to do any damage. That's kind of how you can fight with this class. It's pretty decent in the right situations. I still don't think it's the best because having a hybrid class that's not really that great in any aspect isn't always going to be the most beneficial thing in the world, but you can definitely set up your party to have plenty of success with the class, and it's definitely not the worst class in the world. Like I said, this game is a lot more well-balanced than previous games. No matter what class you use, there's ways you can use it to have some success with it, so I do appreciate that about this game, and I think Thaumaturge can be a pretty fun class to use at the same time. It has some pretty interesting options available to it, and some pretty decent support to take advantage of. I think that is going to cover it for this specific video, though, so I hope you guys learned something from watching. And if you did and enjoyed the guide, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment down below, and feel free to tell me what you want to see next. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and have a wonderful and blessed day, and please come back for my future guides.